And welcome back to Capital Tonight. So as the weather gets warmer, a lot of people are heading outside to soak up the sun. But along with the usual warnings about SPF, this year the American Cancer Society is also expressing concerns about indoor tanning. The organization would like to see the state legislature ban minors from using tanning beds. Now, the Assembly has actually already passed this measure, and now the ACS wants the Senate to do so as well. Joining me now to talk more about this is Sherry Tomasky. She is the American Cancer Society's Advocacy Director. And then joining us from Buffalo is Jennifer Sullivan. She is an ACS employee and a skin cancer survivor. Thank you very much for your time, both of you.
Thanks.
Jennifer, I'd like to start with you. This is obviously a very popular pastime for teenagers. It's been increasingly popular thanks to the Jersey Shore and the gym, tan, laundry mantra. But even as far back as when I was 16, before I went to the prom, I went to a tanning salon. But you had a situation that was actually considerably more dangerous than a little bit of dabbling. So what happened to you?
Well, when I was in the age bracket that this legislation is trying to affect, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, like you just mentioned before, prom, going on vacations, that sort of thing, I utilized indoor tanning beds quite extensively. And I am very fair skin, very Irish skin. I burn very easily. So my kind of process in the beginning of the season would always be to get my burn first, and then I would tan.
Wow.
And so when I did this, I would go into the tanning beds, and many times didn't want tan lines, so I would lay in there with nothing and nothing on. And I was also advised not to use SPF because it could damage the plastic in the tanning bed. My naivety to this was the woman. It showed that through the woman that I was talking to, with the shelf behind her full of tanning oils and accelerators and enhancers and whatnot and bronzers, that clearly was not an issue.
Okay, so subsequently though, when you say you went in a lot, I mean, how frequently did you go? I mean, wasn't every couple of months? Was this a regular, routine, weekly thing for you?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
In the summertime, not so much because of the outside, but before vacations, again, to try and get that base tan before, special occasions like prom and different other weddings and that sort of thing. In the wintertime, I used to love to go in there and lay in there for a half an hour. You know, in upstate New York, we've got fabulous winters up here.
Yeah, we do.
And so we just, it was my time to relax and just listen to some music and feel the warmth on me and stuff.
So
what
happened?
I loved it. I mean, I'll be honest.
What happened to you?
Well, when I was 28, about 12 years later, I went for an exam, a physical exam with my primary care physician, and she was very thorough and did her skin exam of me, a full body scan, and she found four moles on my back that looked very suspicious to her. So she asked me to go to the dermatologist and get them examined, so I did. And he took 4 biopsies. And on November 2nd, 2004, which happened to be Election Day, I was told, I called the office after a message was left for me to return, and I was told that I had malignant melanoma.
Okay, stop for 1 second.
At that point...
Hold on for just 1 second. I want to bring Sherry in before we get any farther. I mean, Sherry,
Sure.
in that we're talking about a ban. We're obviously hearing this story. It's very scary, a personal story. She's quite young. Obviously, Jen is quite young. And a cancer diagnosis is very frightening. The industry is saying,
Yes.
well, hold on a minute. I mean, you have heard young people say, well, we go outside and we tan in the summertime when the sun is out there. How can you prove the scientific linkage between a tanning booth and actual skin cancer for young people?
Well, the research has gotten a lot stronger over the past couple of years that is linking indoor tanning to the precipitous increase in melanoma rates, not only in New York but across the country. There has been, over the past 30 years or so, there's been a 153% increase in the rate of melanoma in females, and that is actually the most prominent in young females under the age of 30. So even here in New York, oncologists and dermatologists that we talk to say that they're seeing an explosion in the number of young women that they're seeing with melanoma. And when you look at the trends in the increase in melanoma, it tracks the growth of the indoor tanning industry almost identically. And we also know from the research that young women, especially teenagers, are tanning with increasing frequency. Between 35 and 40% of teenage girls have reported using indoor tanning at some point. And so with all of that evidence, the World Health Organization looked at this issue and has definitively classified the radiation emitted from tanning beds as a Class 1 known human carcinogen. And that's important because it's the same scientific category as cigarettes, which we all accept as a cancer-causing agent.
Sure, sure. I mean, so the thing is, though, what strikes me, and I think I mentioned to you earlier, is what you guys are seeking here is a ban that is so strict that even if you are 17 years old and your parents say you can go ahead and go tanning, you would not be able to do so. Is that correct?
Right. The bill would prohibit anyone from under the age of 18 from using indoor tanning, and there's a couple of reasons why it's important to focus this policy on that population. Number one, we know that there's precedent for the state acting in the best interests of minors to prohibit the purchase of other, harmful substances like cigarettes and for teenagers, alcohol. We also know that parental consent really hasn't worked in terms of reducing the frequency with which teenagers tan. And I should say, when parental consent was passed a couple years ago, it was the right policy for the right time with the science as it was, but the science has evolved considerably since then. And knowing what we know, this policy is the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, look, to play devil's advocate, you can actually get an abortion without your parents' permission, and you wouldn't be able to tan. Now, of course, conservatives would like to change that, but this is a very strict policy that you're seeking. And also, as I mentioned, the Assembly's passed it, and it's been reported out in the Senate, so it's got a good shot. And New York would be the first state to have a ban like this. Jen, I'd like to go back to you. Were your parents aware of your tanning when you were tanning at the time that you did it? They were. And did they not warn you?
They were horrified.
They were horrified.
No, they did warn me. They were horrified at my irresponsible tanning habits, and I have to tell you that I've had numerous conversations with them since the beginning of the discussion of this legislation coming to vote, and my mom has said numerous times that she wishes that this legislation had been in place back 20 years ago when I was doing this, because it would have given her much more of a leg to stand on. It would have been against the law. There would have been no question. I just wouldn't have been able to go. And, now we've got bronzing cosmetics, we've got lotions, we've got spray tans. There's so many more other options available that that teens can use instead of putting themselves at health risk. I mean, it's 12 times more strong to go into a tanning bed than it is to be out in the sunshine.
I want to just interject for 1 sec, because I think we're going to run out of time soon, and I'd like to give the last word, Sherry, to you. From a policy perspective, again, the industry says this is a nanny state initiative, that people should be, and although we just heard Jen say had her mother had the ability to say no in a legal way, perhaps she wouldn't have had this situation, but the industry says, hey, it's up to people to do what they want. You have smoking bans, but it's not illegal to smoke.
Right, and it wouldn't be illegal for anyone over the age of 18. But, really the precedent has been set with the state protecting minors from a known cancer-causing agent. And, the issue of parental consent, is an important one here, because the science has evolved over the past couple of years, and we know so much more than we did about indoor tanning a couple of years ago. But that that information has not necessarily trickled down to parents the way that we had hoped it would. And, we could kick the can down the road and spend a couple $1 million on a public education campaign, or we could do something meaningful right now to make sure that the exposure to indoor, tanning and the radiation from it, that kids don't have that exposure and that they're protected from it. So, by delaying the onset of tanning to the age of 18, we know fewer people will take up the practice, and we also know that lower overall exposure to radiation is what will reduce the risk for melanoma. We really are looking at the spike in skin cancer in young white women across the state and the country. And we know that indoor tanning is driving a portion of that, and that's why this policy is a sound public health measure.
Well, we're going to be following this because, as I mentioned, it's actually going to be, if it passes both houses and is signed into law, first in the nation ban. And it's interesting, as an end note, it's actually been sponsored in the Assembly by Assemblyman Harvey Wiesenberg, who is on the side a professional lifeguard, and he's actually had his own bout with skin cancer, so he knows a little bit of something about this. I want to thank you guys, both of you, very much. Jen from out in Buffalo, thanks, and Sherry, it's been good to be joined by both of you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much for having me.